Last episode, we saw our Pirates season come to an end, a season that at times showed a ton of promise, but ultimately ended in a 3-1 series loss to the Mets. We kind of saw our team struggle a lot when we played playoff caliber opponents, so I was prepared for this to be a possibility, but the reality of the playoffs is if your bats run cold for a couple of games, you're all of a sudden done for the season, and that's what happened here. After this first game, the only way we scored was solo home runs, with the exception of one dink RBI single from Triolo. And so need to be better than that. And as we saw kind of in that final game, it wasn't so much because of not anybody getting on base. It's just that when they did go on base, we couldn't bring them in. If we go ahead and sort by batting clutch on our team, we of course have Brian Reynolds, who still at a 98 despite dropping one. We have Victor Robles, who's an upcoming free agent. Gonzalez didn't really play much for us. Joe Adell's above 80 in this area. Peguero was hitting for us in the playoffs. His clutch is actually pretty solid. Of course, Jazz Chisholm was injured, and it'd be interesting to see what would happen had he played. I don't think he alone could have made our offense that much better. Billy Fink's in the 70s, Spencer Horwitz. We have a couple of guys here in the 60s, but then that's kind of it. We don't have anybody that's like terrible clutch. It just was, again, kind of a cold streak. And if you get one of those, all of a sudden, like I said, your season is over. And it is for this team. We have a decent crop of guys set to be free agents, and it's going to be interesting deciding what we do, who we decide to bring back, and what spots that we decide to open up for some young players to come in and compete instead in an effort to save some money. Surprise, surprise, the Dodgers have done it again. I was really hoping for us to be able to try and dethrone the Dodgers in this season, but it just wasn't our year. And once again, it is the Dodgers' year, including, in real life, them winning the most recent World Series. This would be 5 straight championships by the Dodgers. Still the undisputed kings of baseball here. I want to see how our guy O'Neal Cruz did in the playoffs. He was terrible. Hitting just 180, one home run in the postseason. He certainly wasn't an asset. It'll be interesting to see if the Dodgers even want to try and bring him back. I don't think they're super happy with what they got in the trade. They didn't give up a ton, to be fair. They gave up one B potential starting pitcher when their pitching staff is absolutely insane. But still, I think they probably would rather have the pitching prospect than O'Neal Cruz. But once again, the Dodgers proved to be, like I said, the best team in baseball. They're getting pretty old, so I'm hoping we can get some good showdowns with them while their core is still together. I don't want to be a World Series competitor once this team is kind of phased out. I want them to still be a great challenge next year. I think they'll still be a great challenge next year, but I don't know how much longer this Dodgers team will be at their best. They have a ton of guys in their mid-30s. We do get one retirement here on our team, and never played in the MLB. So sorry, Justin, for not giving you your shot at the major leagues, but I think we're pretty happy with what we got at the catcher spot. No Hall of Fame inductees for this season. Now, we've got a very talented group of players here that are now set to be free agents. Mitch Keller, who's been a paragon of consistent high quality pitching, I should say. He just had his worst whip season of the rebuild, as well as his worst ERA. But if 3.35 ERA is your worst in the 4 seasons of the rebuild, that's obviously a lot of production. And today we're going to answer the question of who we decide to try and keep around for maybe not necessarily the long term, but the kind of short and medium term at the pitcher spot between Mitch Keller, who is now 32 years old, and Jared Jones. It is tough to let a guy go who has had this level of production. Let's see kind of what he's asking for. He wants $24.7 million on a 2-year deal. You can get him for cheaper if you extend him for more years than that, but obviously at that point you're starting to reach towards the back end of his mid-30s and even to his late 30s the longer you go. To get him back for 1 year, if he'd even be interested in that, would be 25.4. I honestly think you're getting at least 2, if not 3, just because unless you can offer him something so good that he'll sign it before we can get to free agency, there's going to be competitive offers. We're not the only, we're not bidding against ourselves. We're bidding against other teams that have the room to sign him. Will Vest we signed as kind of a 1 year experiment after he won the reliever of the year. Ended up having a pretty solid season. Wasn't as good, as he was his final season in Detroit, but was certainly good enough, I think, to consider bringing back. No doubt about that. Victor Robles, he is currently the piece that we could free up an outside asset slot if we decide to let him walk, but he also is coming off a pretty nice season for us. And I mentioned that the clutch kind of let us down. Well, he's the second highest clutch rating player on this team, and so letting him go certainly wouldn't solve that, quote unquote problem that we had. Jojo Romero, I wouldn't mind bringing him back. Maybe not as our closer, though. I think his time as our closer would be done, but somebody that could be a setup man or somewhere in the middle innings if he wants to come back. His asking price is about 7.5. Will Vest is about 9.3, and Robles is looking for a 5-year deal. So this is what worries me with Robles. I'd be looking at more trying to bring him back on 2 years again. Now, it doesn't increase a ton, only increases to about 19.1 on a 2-year deal. I'm just not so sure that he signs that, like a 19.5 here. He could sign that before hitting free agency, but I feel like if he's asking for a 5, he's not going to really like a 2 once we hit free agency. So a Colin Holderman, we're just letting go. But these 4 right here, very interesting decisions with what we have going forward. And who we can keep, who we end up letting go. There's no way we get all 4 of them back. We also have a lot of holes in our coaching staff now, with some people retiring and other people having their contracts just expire. We only have our pitching coach and our first base coach right now. And one of the things that I found in another series, I can't remember exactly which one it was, so I apologize. I believe it might have been TNJ's series, but not allowing an A staff member at every single one of these positions, I think is going to be a new rule. I think I'm going to force myself to have a maximum of 3 A guys on the coaching staff, just because it doesn't usually make sense to have a coaching staff of all-stars. Now, the other guys I'll be able to fill with Bs, but I'll be limiting myself to only 3 A guys on my staff from this point forward. Usually I think manager, hitting coach, pitching coach, and farm director are the spots that have the best upgrades. I feel like the base coaches don't have as many good upgrades. So these are both going to be Bs, but it's just out of these 4 positions, which 3 are going to get As and which one's going to get the B is the question. As I've said for a while now, part of the Mitch Keller decision is also tied to Jared Jones, and which one we want to bring back, I think, is honestly going to be tied to how much they want. Now, back in August, when you can re-sign some players, Jared Jones was asking for $27 million per year on like a 3 or 4 year deal, if I remember correctly. But also back then, Mitch Keller was only asking for 20, and his asking price has jumped up to 24. If it's still like 27 for Jones, and they're within $3 million of each other, I could see us doing either one. If it's still like like Jared Jones wants $7 or $8 million more than Keller, then I think that's going to be a point towards retaining Keller, if I'm being honest. I think I've found a hitting coach that I really like. More vision, more power, more clutch, all at the cost of drag bunting. Sign me up for that. I'm going to offer a 4-year deal worth maybe 6.5 or something, trying to get that up to full. We're like right at the full, which is kind of where you want to be, not overpaying, but giving just under their max is, I think, exactly where you want to try and be. Victor Zarate is the guy we're going to try and bring in to be our hitting coach for the upcoming season. Whenever Dave Roberts is available on the market, I'm intrigued. Not that he necessarily has the best, ratings to increase. He has great increases, though, a combination of plus 11 across the board. But he also just has a ton of postseason managerial experience here. And he could bring some of that to the squad, helping us overcome the uptick in competition come the postseason. He's also very expensive, though, at $8 million a year. Won't offer him yet, but he's certainly on my mind as one of the options. He would be our third and final A, though, should we decide to hire him. We could also always bring back Jose Rivera. I think he's done a pretty good job so far, much cheaper than Dave Roberts. And +3 vision, +2 power, +3 stealing. We've been one of the best stealing teams in baseball. In fact, we were the best stealing team in baseball last season, and that's probably partly due to the +3 that we're getting from Jose Rivera. He's asking for about 5.5. I also really like Ronald Rodriguez. You're giving a +3 to our clutch. Again, I don't think that's maybe a weakness ratings-wise on our team, but if we could turn it into a strength, I'd be very interested in that. So we're going to offer him $5 million a year for 3 years. That's a little bit lower, but he's kind of down the list here. And so I'm hoping that he'll... I want to go a little bit more than that. Let's go 16.5. Give him an extra $500K a year. That's a little bit better. I think he's far enough down the list that this might be a good enough offer to get him for 3 years. Trying to make clutch a strength here on the squad by getting both clutch from our hitting coach and our manager, but that means we're going to be forced to a B with our farm manager and our third base coach, which, like I said, I'm fine with that at our third base coach. Some of these B ratings are really tough, but we're going to go with Mauricio Cabrera here on a 3-year, $3 million deal. This -1. Like most of these, I'll show you another B guy. He's like -4 on your ratings. That's pretty tough. You're barely getting an upgrade here, or at least with this guy. You're -1 durability. Don't love to lose durability, but it's only 1, and you're getting some decent upgrades elsewhere. So there's a big drop off between A and B from what I'm seeing for a lot of these guys, at least. And then for our B-rated farm director, I'm going to go after Alexis Ramirez here. Losing a pitching clutch, not amazing when I said I'm trying to gain clutch, but this is our farm director. We're only losing 1 to get some solid ratings. Again, when you're restricting yourself down to B, you do lose a lot. There's not a ton of great options. I mean, look at this guy. -3 stealing, not the worst, but -2 walks per 9 is terrible. So Alexis Ramirez is kind of the best I think I can do here, and that gives me an offer for every open coach spot on the team right now. As the offseason begins to draw near and it's time to start making some decisions, we get some news from the owner of the Pirates that despite the fact that our revenue just continues to grow, especially now with playoff revenue coming in, getting our revenue up to a whopping $318.4 million, we are under no circumstances whatsoever to go above the competitive balance tax threshold. Our owner has been generous increasing the funding over what the Pirates have done in previous years, but he does not want to be paying a competitive balance tax on our salary. So what does that mean for our planning for this offseason? Well, excluding already kind of the estimated arbitration and renewable contracts, we had about $200 million, 137 that we've already assigned out to the players we have under contract, plus the roughly 60, if you round up 63, that gets you to 200 million. So with all that said, including revenue sharing, we were projected to have $108 million available. That's not going to be the case. We are going to have, if you include the revenue sharing, under $40 million to spend, if I'm doing this all correctly. Basically, if you take 318 minus 244, we need to have an available budget at a minimum of 74. But just to be safe, to ensure that our owner doesn't get mad at us for going over the CBT threshold here on the season, I'm going to be operating under the assumption that at the end of the offseason, we need to have $80 million. That's just in case we lose some arbitrations or anything weird happens. We need a minimum of $80 million still available at the end of our offseason, which certainly is going to change my plans. That makes what we can do in terms of keeping our free agents a lot tougher here, because that $200 million estimated between what we've already paid out and the arbitration doesn't include Mitch Keller, doesn't include Victor Robles, doesn't include the relievers that we're losing. Things just got a little bit tighter here as we prepare for the offseason. What these new budget restraints are going to do for us is they're going to make a lot of these arbitration decisions very difficult. For example, Jared Triolo wants $5 million a year, and Nick Gonzalez also wants $5 million a year on a 1-year deal. We can't have both. And so deciding between these two, I ultimately decided on Jared Triolo. It was a very difficult decision, but the last time we saw Nick Gonzalez for a full year, he really disappointed. I wouldn't have minded having both of them, but again, we have to save some money here, and if we could save $5 million by not retaining Nick Gonzalez, then we're going to have to do it this year. Henry Davis was willing to come back on 3 years, whereas Andy Rodriguez, who I honestly probably prefer between the two, is looking for 7 this year. That's a $4 million difference, and we can save another $7 million off of the cap by our off of our budget, our cap of the competitive balance tax, by getting rid of Andy Rodriguez. Peguero, who I would have loved to keep, he's looking for $6.5 million. I think that's just too much to pay right now for a backup. Josh here in the outfield, $6 million as well. I just can't pay that much for guys that are projected to be backups. Spencer Horwitz, very similar. Medina and Peter here are both guys that I think I would rather just give their roster spots to young guys anyway, so I've already released them. But some tough arbitration cuts this year. Gonzalez we're going to get rid of. Rodriguez we're going to get rid of. Peguero, Palacios, and Horwitz. We're really only offering Davis, Majinski, and Triolo for now, and we'll see what happens with Jared Jones and Mitch Keller. I haven't yet made that decision. The bar for being offered arbitration on this team has gotten a whole lot higher, not only because we have young guys coming at a lot of these spots, but for the first time in this series, I feel like we are starting to get pinched a little bit against that budget, even though our actual budget's pretty high, of course, with the owner mandated not going above the competitive balance tax. Rather than just cutting Andy Rodriguez, we haven't really gotten a future backup catcher once Henry Davis starts to get a little bit more expensive. He's already 29, but I looked around the league and there aren't a lot of guys that are kind of close to MLB ready that actually have defensive catcher skills. And Caleb Roberts is just kind of the best of things that make sense. Their current catcher right now in Boston doesn't really have the defense to play catcher. He's a decent hitter against right-handed pitching at least, but can't really play catcher defensively at the level you want to. Indy would come in and be their best catcher right now, and we just get somebody that, even though age-wise it doesn't make sense to like trade for him as a prospect, but we are trading him for is, it's first off legal because of our trade restrictions. We can't trade for players that are on a 40-man roster unless they're on the trade block. And also, we can't really trade for somebody that is considered a quote-unquote outside asset, especially for a backup catcher. So some of our trade restrictions have limited who I can acquire in an Andy Rodriguez trade, but Boston gonna get a bit of a catcher upgrade. And Andy's the kind of guy that if you end up upgrading over in free agency, you're totally fine. He's not so much, they're not paying so much that if Andy ends up being a backup, that they're really missing out on anything. So just trying to get something back. It's not a lot, but at least we kind of have a guy that you can consider to be next up online. You could also Giovanni Planchart could also be that as well. Just some of his hitting stats are really, really terrible. So just some competition at future backup catcher, I guess, once Henry Davis starts to get as expensive as Andy was going to be this year for us. Just wanted to get something back that wouldn't count against some of the restrictions we have on the squad. But everybody else that I mentioned, we're just letting go, honestly. Actually, I take that back. We're going to make one more trade here as well. Nick Gonzalez, is worth at least trying to get something back. Based on the guys that we're letting go this offseason, we're actually a little bit light in the outfield. So we're going to get Jorge Bravo, a 21-year-old guy, already 70 overall, see potential. Not on the 40-man roster, which is, of course, another requirement for us, but a solid, probably career minor leaguer, but just another body in the outfield that's going to be better than trying to find one of those 60 overall players in the free agent pool that we can sign for really cheap. So also going to get a little bit of something back for Nick Gonzalez, but not much. As for the Mariners, he ends up coming in and instantly their highest rated second baseman, Ryan Bliss, is close, but I think Nick Gonzalez is somebody that at the very least can compete with Ryan Bliss for that spot. And so this is a team that was one of the, longest lasting. I believe if I know it just happened, but I'm already kind of forgetting who the Dodgers beat. I think it actually might have been Seattle. So this is a team that's certainly looking to compete, and they get somebody that can start for them. After all of those moves are available to spend is $122.31 million. Now remember, we must maintain 80. So our real available to spend right now is $42.31 million. Now these are the motivations that our players have to return. I'm kind of a little bit surprised. I don't know why Robles is down. I don't know what reason that would be, but neither are even at 50%. So it's going to take a while for us to get these players to a spot where they would be willing to sign. Now, in the case of Mitch Keller, we know that he is asking for roughly a 2-year, $24.7 million deal. I offered him like a 2-year, 24 prior to free agency. He didn't sign it, of course. So now it is a free market for Mitch Keller. Victor Robles, I also offered a 2-year contract at I think like 19 per. He did not accept that, and so he is also available to sign, and he is seeking a 5-year deal, which is really unfortunate for me. Even if I were to, I think you can't go under like 2 years from their maximum. I was going to show it to you, but he's not to 50% yet. So with me not even, so the minimum I can now offer him is 3 years. And like I said, I think the ideal for a guy like Robles is another 2-year deal while our outfield prospects continue to develop, but that's just not even an option for us. It's the minimum of a 3-year deal for Robles if he'd even accept it. Now, one of the things that I will say I think maybe works in our favor is this is an insane free agent class. I'm about to show you right now, headlined by Gunnar Henderson, who would be an absolutely sick player to sign, of course, but that's kind of against, I think, the spirit of this franchise, especially with us having our budget now constrained a bit. But even, with our outside asset formula, it was meant to avoid signings like Gunnar Henderson, which would be insane, and I would love to do it. If I ever do like some fantasy style franchise where I just don't care about realism at all, I'd love to sign a Gunnar Henderson in free agency, of course. There's guys like Clase, Ketel Marte, Kyle Bradish, who's the top starter on the market. Ronald Acuna's here, another guy. I love Ronald Acuna. I would love to have him. on my franchise for sure. Jose Ramirez. I mean, this free agent class is so insane that a guy like Riley Green, who's 28 years old, isn't even a top 10 free agent. An insane class. And so one of the reasons I think we might not have to overpay for a guy like Mitch Keller is he's actually the 10th starting pitcher on the market this year. That's just how good this class is. He's FA ranked 20th. That would be 10th again among these pitchers. There's a lot of guys kind of in the teens, like between 9 and 20, where Mitch Keller is. That's kind of dominated by pitchers, whereas the top 10 is more dominated by hitters. But that might mean, even though we have a 39% motivation to sign, we can still be like the first team to offer him. Maybe not the first team, but maybe the first team to offer him a deal that he actually likes, and so that gives me a little bit of hope. Also with like Victor Robles, I think Kerry Carpenter was considered a higher priority guy than him, and if he doesn't want to sign with us, I honestly wouldn't even mind switching to a Kerry Carpenter. He has some serious power out there, but I wouldn't. I'd like to just keep Victor Robles, honestly. I mean, what kind of contract is a Kerry Carpenter looking for? He's also asking for 5 years. Obviously, the belle of the ball, a lot of people who have budget are going to be going after Ronald Acuna at this right field spot, so that makes me feel good. There's also guys like Garcia, Jesus Sanchez. Like, every position has guys. Like, if this was the year, if you felt like you were a piece away from making the World Series, which of course applies to our team, this would be the year to try and get that last piece. Now, there are some restrictions that are making me not go for guys like Royce Lewis, who under normal circumstances, if I had no restrictions, I'd love to go for guys like that. But what do we do about free agency here? Again, we have $42 million, and that is assuming, let's quickly go back here. Not there. We did release Anthony Solometo, by the way. I think this is assuming that we're paying Jared Jones roughly $22.5 million. Is that 42 number? If we wanted to get Jones back on a 4-year contract, that's $28 million per. So that's $3 million a year more than on a 4-year deal, more than Mitch Keller would want on a 2-year deal. Really, it'd probably be a 2-year 25. And that is if there's not a bidding war ultimately for Mitch Keller, who might only be the 10th rated pitcher on the market. But of course, we've highlighted just how good he's been. And usually productive players do get paid. That's just kind of how this game goes. It's not only overall that determines how players get paid, but it's their production, which Mitch Keller's has been good. So I'm a little bit worried on that front. In terms of guys who we could potentially add if we end up losing out on Victor Robles, which would free up one outside asset slot. We're currently at 4 out of 5 technically because Robles isn't on the team, but if we re-sign him, we're full. If we get outbid for Robles, who are the kind of players that I wouldn't mind bringing onto the team? Well, first off, if we want to go for a high overall player, I'd be very interested in adding an Emmanuel Clase here. He is an absolute stud closer, and while relievers don't usually count for outside assets, it's this caliber of player that does, and I still think it would be worth it. You'd be getting a guy who, weirdly enough, hasn't actually been a closer, despite being one of the highest rated ones in the entire game since 2026. But in his 2 years as a closer, he was really good. I mean, look at these numbers. Not a great strikeout guy, of course, but so good everywhere else. That 98 pitching clutch, I just absolutely love it. His quirks are good. The stopper is maybe why he's not a closer anymore, because he actually performs better when his team is behind. But his 2 years that he was closing in this rebuild, he was reliever of the year. That's the caliber of closer that I'd be willing to not only pay a bit of money, but also spend an outside asset slot on. If it's not for a pitcher, this would be the only pitcher that I would consider. I wouldn't do it for a starter. I'd rather just bring back Mitch Keller. But for a hitter. So right now my plan is to hopefully bring back Victor Robles, have him in right, have Joe Adell in center, and then have Buford Kingman play left next year for us while Brian Reynolds becomes our DH. If we lose out on Robles, then Buford Kingman probably moves to right, and Brian Reynolds actually sticks at left, which all of a sudden opens up our DH slot. So what would I like to do there? There are some interesting DH options. There is a Nolan Gorman, who at 28 years old offers some serious power, but he's not very consistent. Last year he hit 30 home runs, but hit below 200 getting there. And I love power hitters for sure, and Nolan Gorman would be that as a DH. I just think I'd rather have somebody that's a little bit more consistent than somebody who hits nukes. I think we have some good power on our team already, which brings me to Luis Arias, who I actually think would be my favorite option at DH this year. Doesn't offer the power that you usually want in a DH, but 99 clutch, 99 vision, great contact hitter. His discipline is unfortunate. It makes it so he doesn't always have the best on-base percentage, actually. You don't love that about him. And he's coming off a down year, but I like to take chances on guys that are coming off a down year. If he can be like what he was in 2027 for the Athletics here, I'd absolutely take that level of production. And he barely actually even counts as an outside asset. If he was one overall lower, I could sign him regardless of what we do with Victor Robles. And maybe since he's so specialized, he's a contact-only DH, and he's like barely meets the threshold for being an outside asset, I might even allow myself to sign him anyways. But even though it is technically cheating, but by the tiniest margin. But those are kind of my options. There are so many good players, but a lot of them just aren't really they're like either too good to come in to this squad, and we don't have the outside asset slots to take them anyways, or they're asking for too many years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to be a league-shaping offseason, though. So many good players are going to be shifting hands. We'll see how many of them go to Los Angeles. I actually hope Los Angeles makes a splash or two because they're so old now that I want them to continue to be a big-time opponent for us going forward in the playoffs. But we'll see if anybody interesting goes to the division. Goes in our division. There's Alvarez, who we just faced in the playoffs, but so many good players are on this free agent market. I'm excited to see not only what we end up doing, but what everyone else ends up doing. I'm starting to formulate a bit of a plan of what I want to do in this free agent period and offseason in general. But I want you to let me know, given the information that I've given you right now, what would your offseason plan be, knowing that you only had a roughly $42 million to spend and at most only one outside asset slot, which is for players above 80 overall. And you need two outside asset slots for anyone above 85 overall unless they're a reliever. So our resources are limited, but the supply is not limited at all. And we have a ton of options. Like I said, I think I have my plan and I'm ready to get it going. Step one of my plan is to officially offer Jared Jones a $28 million a year contract for the next 4 seasons. We'll also offer him arbitration in case he does not accept it at roughly 17.5 or exactly 17.5 but he'll be added to the players who are in their arbitration years. We're only offering these 4 guys. We've already traded away some and released the rest here, but I am going to be offering Jared Jones a big-time contract for this upcoming season. This is to make sure that we don't end up losing both Jones and Keller, who I do think there's a chance that we lose. And I have some plans in place in case we end up getting both of them. Oh boy, are the Reds about to make a splash finally in free agency? Royce Lewis would be an awesome addition for them, and I said it before, the youth on that team makes them probably our most competitive long-term rival in the division, and a player like Royce Lewis would obviously add to that. I'm hoping they're starting to actually spend in free agency here. Next step in my plan is to offer Robles 3 years, a year more than I would like to, and this actually makes him go below 50, so I'm not even sure he would sign it, be willing to sign it, but I'm going to offer it to him anyway here, 3 years, 17.5. Byron Buxton, one of the first big-time dominoes to fall, 35 years old, going to Baltimore. I was about to say to play with Gunnar Henderson, but I don't actually even know at this point. We'll see if Gunnar stays. Maybe this can help sway him towards staying. All right, Robles decides that our offer just isn't good enough, unfortunately. So we'll have to just kind of maybe keep on increasing his motivation to sign, because I'm pretty hard set on 3 years. I could maybe go up to like 18 mil, maybe 18 and a half. Royce Lewis, in fact, will not go to Cincinnati, instead staying in Minnesota. I was kind of honestly rooting for Cincy to make that signing, unfortunately, but staying loyal. Minnesota always pays up in these off seasons in this series. The Dodgers do make a big-time signing, but it does not make them any younger at all. Ketel Marte at 35, looking to just win a World Series, I guess, at this stage in his career, and easily no better place to do it than LA. I am offering Mitch Keller 2 years, $25 million per. And we get a 5% boost here. As you can see, I am going after Emmanuel Clase. Now, unfortunately, with our motivation, we won't even be able to ask for this week or next, but I'm hoping we can get some guys off the board. I'm going to probably wait another week on Robles. I'm going to move him up, trying to get more boost here. I'm hoping Mitch Keller signs. All the guys that we had offered on their contracts in arbitration have accepted it. So once again, no one heading to arbitration. Jarrett Jones back on the squad, 4 years, $28 million per year. We'll get him 27, 28, 29, and 30 age seasons. He'll be back on the market at age 31. We've got Mitch Keller's contract decision upcoming, having locked down Jones. Are we going to surprisingly end up keeping both of them when I talked about it both being kind of one or the other? Mitch Keller does decide to come back. Like I said, I did have a plan in place in case both of them came back. It might not come as a surprise to some, but might be to others. We'll get to it here in just a minute. Emmanuel Clase has, with the signing of Mitch Keller, actually been now gotten enough interest for us to try and sign. I'm going to go up to about $18.5 million per for Emmanuel Clase here. And we do get a 5% motivation boost on that, which I like to see. We've also gotten enough time passed here that I think we're going to try again with Victor Robles at 3 years, 17.5. Now, you might say, if we get both of these guys, we're 6 out of 5 on our outside assets. That's illegal. And once again, I have a plan. We'll see if we can even get both of them in the first place, though. Contract decisions upcoming here. I don't even know which one's this for. It's either Robles or Clase, of course. I think because it's a longer animation, it's going to be for Clase. He is a Pittsburgh Pirate. We get an all-star closer now to add to this playoff squad. And officially, we're at 5 out of 5 outside asset slots. And we are awaiting the decision for Victor Robles. But I love having an awesome closer. And while we wait for Nivar to develop, we'll have Clase. And by the time that Clase's contract is up, Nivar will be able to kind of come in and hit the ground running and become an instant awesome closer for us, is kind of my vision with this signing. But I was worried about Jojo Romero last year. I don't think I'm going to have any worries for Emmanuel Clase to come in and be the closer for us. At age 30, I think he's still got some good seasons of pitching, even elite seasons of pitching still ahead of him. I'm stoked for this signing for the squad. Now we get to hear if Victor Robles is coming back, and he is. Okay. So far, everything that I wanted from this offseason has worked out. Tyler Glasnow going to the Giants. Jose Ramirez going to the Dodgers as well. So they're just adding all the super old players. They're not getting any younger, but my oh my, they are becoming pretty much impossible to beat next year. So that's going to be fun. Ronald Acuna back to the Braves. This is a very big day of free agent signing. But we're now in a spot where we actually, according to our rules, cannot start next season. Jesus Luzardo is a man that I think can solve our problems on both fronts. One, he can free up $19.7 million off of the books. And another, he can free up that outside asset slot that is now overfilling at 6 out of 5. This is kind of my plan in case we ended up with both Jared Jones and Mitch Keller. Now, in the short term, there is a downside. Our 5-man rotation next year, which will be Skenes, Jones, Keller, Bubblegum Chandler, and Thomas Coyle, who will make his MLB debut at the start of next season. All right-handed pitchers. We will not have a lefty in our starting lineup. I don't love that. I like to have at least one, if not two. But Pete Good's not too far away, honestly. And by the time our contract with Mitch Keller is up, he'll be able to come in and step into his shoes pretty easily. I know kind of before I talked about Coyle replacing one of Keller or Jones and then Pete Good replacing Jesus Luzardo. It turns out that's just going to be flipped. Thomas Coyle will be the one replacing Luzardo, and then Pete Good will be the one replacing likely Mitch Keller in this rotation over the next couple of seasons. So with this being said, Jesus Luzardo is coming off a solid year. I don't think we necessarily need to attach a prospect for somebody to be willing to take on this level of production, but it is a decent amount of money for multiple years. So I do think we're going to need to attach a prospect in order for a team to want to take on this deal. I think there are a couple of different options for this. I think the best prospect that I'd be willing to trade away that we have available is Jermaine Hodges. Of course, we've talked about his downside, his weak pitching clutch, totally undermining his awesome hits per 9. He also doesn't pitch a single pitch 90 miles an hour plus. Maybe another guy that somebody would want is 20-year-old Tino Tejada here. He has weaker hits per 9 and Ks per 9, but they aren't maybe debilitating. But he's a little bit farther away than maybe some teams will like. Barack Corral is kind of maybe just a poor man's version of Tino Tejada, except he doesn't make a living on hits per 9, so thus his pitching clutch maybe isn't as detrimental. But we have a lot of pitchers, and I already kind of talked about my succession plan for the future, and then there's also Cristobal Velasquez, who we just took in the first round. I'm not willing to trade him. I'm just talking about we have so many pitching options that I think one of Hodges, Tino Tejada, Ray Drake, someone in that line. I don't even know if Ray Drake would have a ton of value where he has at 24 years old. I think Tino Tejada or Jermaine Hodges is going to have to go alongside Jesus Luzardo to entice a team to take them on. As for a trade partner, I think, once again, the Diamondbacks kind of stand out as a partner. We have a good relationship with them. We made a trade that I think they are probably happy with at this point. In Hayes, he's had one, not great season, but one, honestly, for the level of defense he provides, pretty good season in Arizona. So they know that we aren't trying to screw them over. And outside their top couple of guys, they don't have really anybody. They also don't have much in the way of starting pitcher prospects. They kind of have Cabrera and Kloffenstein. That's it. So I think they'd love to take on another pitching prospect, and they'd also love to have Jesus Luzardo. This is a team that went to the second round of the playoffs last year. In terms of what I want back, we're a little bit light in terms of backup middle infielders. So if we could get like a Manuel Pena here. He is on the 40-man roster, unfortunately, so he actually wouldn't be eligible according to our rules. We could get Corey Joyce. He's not very good, but again, this is more of a money-cutting move. We're giving them a prospect to take on some money for us. We're not getting anything really back in Corey Joyce. I think I might. Oh, that was a third base. What about shortstop? Is Tommy Troy? Yep, he's on there. What about a Gerard Nance? I'd be more interested in him just because he's so much younger. He can also play a few different positions. What about a Gerard Nance? So this is obviously in favor of the Diamondbacks, but that's kind of what we're asking for here. Save us some money, also make it so the moves that we've made so far in this offseason are legal according to our rules. So a C potential prospect, obviously we could probably get more than that for Hodges and Luzardo. The purpose of this trade was not to be fair. It was to get off money and get to a legal point, not only money-wise, because I think we're actually over our budget right now, but also to make sure our outside assets slots are fair. So we were kind of in a state of desperation. The Diamondbacks get a good trade off of it for the second time in this series. We give them, I think, a pretty good trade. Where does that leave this squad? Again, that leaves us with an alrighty but pretty good pitching rotation, I think, and it gives us just one of the best closers in all of baseball for this season. And then it gives us Victor Robles back 1 year longer than I wanted. But again, I think I've already showed you how many pitchers we have, more than what we need. I'm sure in a couple of seasons we'll have even more. I think attaching a pitching prospect to get off of a contract that we no longer want is always going to be on the table for us, if I'm being honest. So that is pretty much my plan here for the offseason. There might need to be a couple of moves I make, minor moves I make here and there to fill out the roster. But this is what we ended up doing. Surprisingly, kept both Mitch Keller and Jared Jones at the expense of Jesus Luzardo instead. We got an awesome closer, and we retain Victor Robles. That is what we do here in off-season 4 of the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise. Oh, our trade even made it on like the free agent off-season screen. So there you have it. The Diamondbacks get a boost to their pitching. So here we have it at the end. This is what our budget is saying. So I know we aren't at the 80 that I said was actually my goal, but of course the hard cutoff was actually the 244, which was 74 million available, and we're about $1 million above that. So the goal was for 80, but of course the hard cap was 74. We're above the one, but under still the other, which is what our owner really cares about. We are using all of our money here. And other than Joe Adell, we don't really, and some of our arbitration guys, we don't really have money coming off the books next year. Again, that is always a problem that I can solve at any moment just by giving away a prospect if we need to get off, say, Mitch Keller next year or whatever to stay under our budget. But this is the plan for the offseason. I hope you enjoyed it. Not going to end the episode off here, as we still have some other things to go through, such as where all the other players went in the offseason. But I had kind of some lofty goals, I feel like, at times. I didn't know we were going to be able to get everything that I wanted to get done, all of it done, but we did. This was pretty much my perfect scenario for this offseason, and it came true. So let me know what you thought I did. But let's go ahead and see what kind of happened around the league here. Whoa! Gunnar Henderson is leaving Baltimore for Detroit, man. That's wild stuff. Signs a 12-year, $445 million contract. If you're wondering what Billy Fink is going to get in free agency, there you have it. This is the kind of money we're saving by giving him $22 million a year. That's like $15 million in savings once he becomes a free agent eligible player. Obviously, we're paying for it now, but might be worth it for these kind of savings. And honestly, he's hitting the market at a time where he might still get a similar deal. That's kind of why we made the deal with him. I felt like it was a win-win for both sides. But Gunnar Henderson, massive contract. Top pitcher on the market, goes to the Boston Red Sox. Kyle Bradish, only on a one-year deal, though. At age 32, I feel like I'd be looking for a multi-year deal if I was him. And maybe he was. It just wasn't available. But 37 mil for the next year. We won't be involved in it, but just to see maybe if there's a division rival that's going to win the lottery or something like that. Let's go ahead and get to the draft lottery. We're going to be picking all the way down towards the bottom of the first round. I've been asked kind of what my draft strategy is when you pick this late, if it changes much, and I'll just say it right now, it doesn't actually change all that much. It just changes who you're actually looking at in terms of player ranking wise. I usually ignore kind of the top 15 MLB ranked players when I pick in this spot, unless there's somebody that like looks really good and they're like exactly at 15, because they might fall. But the Cubs fall, so no division rival picking at 1, but they are picking at 3, which I feel like is more actually likely for them to draft a generational prospect. I feel like the CPU almost never drafts a generational prospect number 1 overall. unless they, get lucky and don't scout him or something. But I'm hoping they're a generational prospect that goes to the Cubs. Fingers crossed. Here in the Rule 5 draft, we obviously aren't going to... we could take somebody that's making $780,000 exactly. Like, if somebody was still in like a renewable year, we could technically take somebody. I'll look just in case, but I highly doubt we're taking anybody here. We could maybe use like some sort of utility infielder or something. Robert Poisson, I'd love to have another shot at developing him, but I think we're just going to play it safe and not draft anybody here in this draft. We actually already have 13 MLB players, hitters, and then we're just going to be promoting a bunch of our relievers this year that are kind of in that low to mid 70s. So we didn't actually need to take anybody in the Rule 5 draft this year, and again, with our budget so tight, I think it's just smart to avoid it this season. Francisco Alvarez to the Braves. Big move by Atlanta here after retaining Ronald Acuna as well. That's going to wrap up the offseason here. It didn't look like our division was very active. I know the Reds were at least kicking around, but nobody made any splash signings within the division. I was hoping the Reds could have signed an awesome third baseman. They ended up with Josh Young here. They ended up signing him, so they were looking at third base. Couldn't get their first option here. We have yet to see Adley Rutschman play for the Brewers, and we've yet to see, even though it's been years now, I really need to, that's going to be on my watch list for sure. We're 100% going to watch Skubal pitch for the Cardinals against us next year. That's been the biggest splash in free agency in the division so far, that and Jazz Chisholm, and we've yet to watch it. I keep meaning to, I just keep forgetting. So, and now, of course, Emmanuel Clase. But that's it for the offseason. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back soon to start Season 5. There's a lot of hype surrounding Season 5. I think this team could be very good, and I'll see you then. Let's go Bucks.